Sarah stood at the kitchen counter in their Tampa apartment, sorting through bills while the coffee maker gurgled its morning song. Her daughter Emma, 7 years old, sat cross-legged on the floor watching cartoons. Her son Marcus, 10, was hunting for his soccer cleats under the couch. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning. The kind that blends into every other morning until something breaks the pattern. David walked in wearing his hospital scrubs, the dark blue ones he wore for his nursing shifts. His cologne reached her before his voice did. "I'm covering a double shift at the clinic downtown," he said, checking his phone. "I'll be back Thursday morning." Sarah looked up from a stack of overdue notices. "You didn't mention any extra shifts. We need to talk about these bills. Can we do this later? I'm already late." He grabbed his duffel bag from the hallway closet. Marcus ran over, soccer ball tucked under his arm. "Dad, can you come to my game on Saturday? Coach says I might start." David's smile was practiced. "If I'm back in time, buddy. I'll try my best." "Try," Sarah repeated quietly. The word felt hollow. He kissed the air near her cheek and headed for the door. Emma wrapped her arms around his leg. "Bring me candy." "I'll bring you a whole bag," he promised, gently loosening her grip. The door closed behind him. Sarah stood there, coffee mug in hand, listening to the silence he left behind. At first, she pushed down the uneasy feeling in her stomach. Nurses picked up extra shifts. Families dealt with tight budgets. This was normal. This was manageable. But when she checked their bank account that afternoon, something felt wrong. The automatic transfer to savings hadn't happened in 3 months. She called the clinic where David worked part-time. "I'm looking for David Chen," she said. "I'm his wife." "Oh." The receptionist paused. David's last shift was 3 weeks ago. He resigned. The words hit Sarah like cold water. "What? Since when?" 3 weeks ago. He said he was moving to a different facility. Sarah ended the call and sat down on the couch, her legs suddenly weak. 3 weeks. He'd been lying for 3 weeks. She tried calling him. The phone rang, then went to voicemail. She tried again an hour later. Straight to voicemail. Maya, her best friend, came over that evening after Sarah sent a desperate text. She found Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. "He quit his job 3 weeks ago," Sarah said. "He's not on a double shift, Maya. He's gone." Maya pulled up a chair. "Have you called his parents?" Sarah shook her head. "His mom already thinks I'm the reason he's stressed. I'm not giving her more ammunition." For 3 days, Sarah kept trying to reach him. Nothing. She told the kids their dad's shift got extended. She plastered on smiles. She made their favorite meals. She pretended everything was normal while her world tilted sideways. On Friday, the answering machine blinked with a new message. Sarah pressed play. "Hi, this is Tom from Sunshine Storage on Dale Mabry. We're calling about the unit rented under David Chen. Just confirming the auto payment went through. Call us back if there are any issues." Sarah's blood went cold. Storage unit? They didn't have a storage unit. She called the number immediately. "This is Sarah Chen. You left a message about a storage unit." "Yes, Mrs. Chen. Your husband rented a unit 2 weeks ago. The first month's payment just cleared. Can you tell me what's in it?" "Sorry, we can't disclose contents. But you're welcome to come by during business hours." Sarah hung up and looked at Maya, who had stayed with her all week. "He's been planning this." That night, after putting Marcus and Emma to bed, Sarah went through David's closet. His favorite jacket was gone. 3 of his best shirts. His gym bag. His laptop. Her hands shook as she opened drawer after drawer. Empty spaces stared back at her. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "He's with me now. Don't contact him again." Sarah stared at the message until her vision blurred. She typed back, "We have children. He needs to call them." Three dots appeared, then disappeared. Finally, he's starting over. Respect that. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, David's empty pillow beside her. The room felt too big and too small at the same time. Another text came through. A photo. David at a restaurant, smiling, his arm around a woman with long dark hair and a bright red dress. Sarah's chest tightened. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She walked to Marcus's room and watched him sleep, his participation trophy from last season on his nightstand. Then to Emma's room, where her daughter had kicked off her blankets again. She sat in the hallway between their rooms and made a decision. If David wanted to disappear, fine. But he wouldn't take their dignity with him. Tomorrow, she'd call a lawyer. She'd figure out the bills. She'd keep showing up for her kids. She'd survive this. She opened a notebook and wrote 3 things. Rent due, find a way. Marcus's inhaler refill. Call attorney. She closed the notebook, turned off the light, and went to bed. Sleep came in pieces, but morning would come regardless, and she'd be ready. Thank you for reading. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from, and share your thoughts on Sarah's situation. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to life. See you in. 5 years didn't fly by. They crawled, one bill at a time, one fever at a time, one broken down car at a time. Sarah learned to be the backbone she never knew she was. She worked morning shifts at a medical office, afternoon shifts doing bookkeeping for a local shop, and every spare moment keeping Marcus and Emma's lives from falling apart. By year 2, the sharp pain of David's betrayal had dulled into something quieter. Not forgiveness, but acceptance that she could survive without him. By year 5, Marcus was 15, tall and lean, with his father's dark eyes but his mother's determined jaw. Emma was 12, artistic and perceptive, who asked fewer questions about her dad as the years went on. They rarely talked about David anymore. But he lived in the spaces between words. In the way Marcus watched other fathers at soccer games. In the way Emma sometimes drew families with only 2 people in them. It was a Thursday afternoon in March when the envelope arrived. Sarah was folding laundry, the mundane rhythm she'd perfected over years of single parenting, when she noticed the cream-colored envelope on the coffee table. The return address was from Orlando. The handwriting made her stomach drop. David's slanted, careless scrawl. She sat down slowly, holding the envelope like it might explode. For several minutes, she just stared at it. Finally, she tore it open. Inside was thick cardstock, embossed letters shining under the lamplight. Mr. David Chen requests the honor of your presence at the marriage of David Chen and Jessica Martinez. Below the printed text, in his handwriting, I would be honored if you could attend. Sarah let out a laugh that didn't sound like laughter at all. It was the sound of disbelief breaking through shock. She set the invitation on the table and stared at it like it was evidence in a crime scene. When Marcus came home from practice, sweaty and hungry, he dropped his gear and noticed the card. What's that? Nothing you need to worry about, Sarah said, but her voice gave her away. Marcus studied her face. He'd learned to read her moods over the years. Is it from him? Sarah hesitated. Yes. What does he want? Doesn't matter. She folded the invitation and tucked it away. After the kids were in bed, Sarah called Maya. You will not believe what I got in the mail today. Try me, Maya said. David's getting married. And he invited me to the wedding. The line went silent for 3 seconds. I'm sorry, what? You heard me right. He's marrying someone named Jessica Martinez. And apparently, he thinks I want a front row seat. That man has lost his mind, Maya said. Please tell me you're not going. I don't know. Sarah. He didn't send birthday cards for Marcus. He didn't show up when Emma was in the hospital with pneumonia. But now he wants you to watch him marry someone else. Part of me wants to ignore it. But another part. Sarah trailed off. Another part wants him to see that you're not broken, Maya finished. I get it. But this could hurt more than it helps. Sarah leaned back against the couch. Maybe. But maybe I need him to see that I survived. That I'm still standing. If you go, I'm coming with you. I need to do this alone. Maya sighed. Then promise me you'll be careful. This isn't just about seeing him. It's walking into his new life, the one he chose over you and the kids. I know, Sarah whispered. The invitation stayed on her dresser for 5 days. She'd walk past it, sometimes stopping to look at it, sometimes pretending it didn't exist. Finally, on Tuesday morning, she made her decision. She wouldn't tell Marcus and Emma. There was no reason to drag them into this. They didn't need the image of their father marrying someone else burned into their memories. The wedding was Saturday, 2.5 hours away in Orlando, at a hotel whose name required looking up how to pronounce. On Saturday morning, Sarah dressed carefully. A simple navy blue dress that fit well but wasn't flashy. Pearl earrings from her grandmother. Minimal makeup. She wasn't trying to compete with a bride. She was there to be seen, not to make a scene. Where are you going? Marcus asked, catching her at the door. To see someone from a long time ago, she said. Someone important. They used to be. Emma peeked out from her room. You look pretty, Mom. Sarah smiled. Thank you, sweetheart. I'll be back tonight. The drive to Orlando felt longer than 2.5 hours. Every mile closer made her heart beat harder. She remembered the good days with David. The early years when they'd stay up late talking about their dreams. Sunday mornings making pancakes with the kids. The way he used to make her laugh. She also remembered the day he left. The storage unit. The text from the other woman. The 5 years of silence. When she pulled into the hotel parking lot, her hands were steady. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. She looked like herself. Older, tired, but still whole. The hotel lobby was pristine, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers. A man in a suit directed her to the ballroom. Here for the Chen Martinez wedding? Yes, she said without hesitation. String music drifted from the open doors. She could hear laughter, the clink of champagne glasses, the rustle of expensive fabric. Sarah took a breath, straightened her shoulders, and walked inside. White roses lined the aisle. Gold ribbons draped from every surface. The room was filled with well-dressed strangers. And at the front, David stood in a tailored gray suit, looking polished and confident. Beside him, Jessica Martinez, beautiful in white lace, smiled at the guests. David was mid-conversation with his best man when his eyes found Sarah. The smile froze on his face. All color drained from his cheeks. The room seemed to hold its breath. Sarah walked down the aisle slowly, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Every eye turned toward her. Whispers spread like wildfire. When she reached the front, she didn't sit down. Hello, David, she said. Her voice was calm, clear, and carried through the silent room. David stared at Sarah like she was a ghost who'd stepped out of his carefully buried past. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Jessica glanced between them, her perfect smile wavering. David. Who is this? The guests leaned forward in their seats. The string quartet faltered, notes trailing off into uncomfortable silence. Grace. David finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah kept her composure. You look surprised. I thought you wanted me here. You did send an invitation. I didn't think you'd actually come. Neither did I, Sarah said. But then I realized you wouldn't have invited me unless you wanted me to witness this moment. So here I am. Jessica's voice rose, sharp with confusion. David, what's going on? Who is she? David cleared his throat, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. It's complicated. Sarah turned to address the room. Her voice was steady, but it carried weight. 5 years ago, this man walked out on me and our 2 children. No warning. No explanation. No support. Just gone. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone in the front row whispered, "Children." Jessica's hand dropped from David's arm. "What? David, you told me you never had kids." "That's because he pretended we didn't exist," Sarah continued. "For 5 years, he never called his son on his birthday. Never showed up to his daughter's school events. Never sent $1 for groceries or rent." David's face went from pale to red. "Sarah, this isn't the time or place." "Oh, I think it's exactly the time and place," Sarah cut him off. "You invited me to witness your new beginning. I'm just providing context for everyone here about how you treat the people you promise to love." The officiant cleared his throat awkwardly. "Perhaps we should take a moment." Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a folded document. She stepped closer to Jessica, holding it out. "Do you know what this is?" Jessica frowned, taking the paper with trembling hands. "No. It's our marriage certificate," Sarah said clearly. "David's and mine. We're still legally married. He never filed for divorce." The room erupted. Gasps turned to shocked exclamations. Jessica's mother stood up, her face furious. Several guests pulled out their phones. Jessica's voice cracked. "David, is this true?" David took a step forward, his hands raised. "We've been separated for years." "I thought." "You thought what?" Sarah's voice cut through his excuse. "That you could just pretend your family never existed? That you could build this fantasy life without facing what you left behind?" The officiant backed away from the altar. "Mr. Chen, I cannot proceed with a ceremony if there's a legal impediment." "There's more than a legal impediment," Jessica said, her voice shaking. She turned to David. "You told me you were divorced. You said it was finalized 3 years ago. You looked me in the eye and lied." "I was going to handle it," David said weakly. "I just needed more time." "More time." Jessica's voice rose. "We've been together for 2 years. We've been planning this wedding for 6 months. And you're still married." Sarah's voice softened, but it still commanded the room. "David, you can live however you want. You can run from responsibility. But you can't erase the truth. And today, everyone here gets to see who you really are." Jessica stared at David like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. "How could you do this? How could you lie to me? To everyone here?" "Jessica, please." David reached for her hand. She jerked away. "Don't touch me." She turned to the crowd, tears streaming down her face. "This wedding is cancelled." She lifted the hem of her dress and walked out of the ballroom, her head held high despite the tears. Her bridesmaids rushed after her, shooting David looks of pure disgust. Jessica's mother stopped in front of David, her voice low and venomous. "My husband's law firm will be contacting you about the money we spent on this disaster. Consider yourself sued." She swept out, leaving David standing alone at the altar. David's face hardened as he looked at Sarah. "You didn't have to do this. You could have just talked to me privately." Sarah stepped closer, her voice dropping to just between them. "No, David. I didn't have to. But I wanted you to feel for 5 minutes what I felt for 5 years. Embarrassment. Betrayal. The feeling of having your life turned upside down in front of everyone." She stepped back and addressed the crowd one more time. "I didn't come here to ruin a wedding. I came here because the truth deserves to be told. What you all do with that information is up to you." She turned and walked toward the doors. The crowd parted silently. Some stared. Some nodded with what looked like respect. Some looked away. As Sarah stepped outside into the warm Florida sunshine, the knot in her chest that had lived there for 5 years finally loosened. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She just breathed. And for the first time since David left, Breathing didn't hurt. She walked to her car, got in, and sat for a moment with her hands on the steering wheel. Her phone was already buzzing with notifications, but she ignored it. She started the engine and drove out of the parking lot, leaving the chaos behind her. On the highway back to Tampa, she rolled down the windows and let the wind rush through the car. She thought about Marcus and Emma waiting at home. She thought about the life she'd built despite David's absence. And she thought about the look on his face when his perfect facade crumbled. It wasn't revenge, exactly. It was justice. It was truth. It was closure. For the first time in 5 years, Sarah felt free. By the time Sarah pulled into her driveway in Tampa, the sun was setting and her phone had exploded with notifications. Maya had called 4 times. There were texts from numbers she didn't recognize, and one voicemail from a woman who sounded breathless with gossip. "I was at the Chen wedding. You're incredible. That man deserved every word." Sarah deleted the voicemail and walked into the house. Marcus was on the couch with a video game controller. Emma sat at the kitchen table with her sketchbook. Normal. Safe. Home. "How'd it go?" Marcus asked without looking up from his game. Sarah set her purse down. "It went exactly how it needed to." Emma looked up from her drawing. "Did you see your friend?" Sarah smiled faintly. "Yes. And I said what I needed to say." Neither child pushed for details, and Sarah was grateful. Some things could wait. Some things might never need to be said. That night, after tucking both kids into bed, Sarah sat on her back porch with a cup of tea and finally looked at her phone. Maya had sent a link. Sarah clicked it, and her screen filled with a shaky video. Someone at the wedding had recorded everything. The moment Sarah walked down the aisle, David's face going pale. Her calm, clear words about his abandonment. Jessica's horrified reaction. The cancelled wedding. The caption read, "Woman exposes ex-husband's lies at his wedding." The video had tens of thousands of views and hundreds of comments. "She's a hero. He got what he deserved. This is messy. She should have handled it privately. 5 years with no child support. She showed restraint." Sarah closed the video and set her phone down. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt tired. Maya showed up Sunday morning with coffee and bagels, letting herself in with the spare key Sarah had given her years ago. "You're famous," Maya announced, setting the coffee on the table. "I saw. How do you feel about it?" Sarah thought for a moment. "Honestly, I don't know. I didn't go there to make a scene. I went there to make sure he couldn't pretend anymore." Well, mission accomplished. Word on the street is that Jessica's family is furious. Her father apparently runs a successful law practice, and they're coming after David for fraud or something. Fraud. He signed documents claiming he was single. The venue, the vendors, everything was contracted under false pretenses. Maya bit into a bagel. Also, his hospital. They're reviewing his employment. Lying about your marital status on benefits forms is apparently a big deal. Sarah felt a flicker of something. Not quite satisfaction. More like validation. "What about the kids?" Maya asked gently. "Are you going to tell them?" "Not yet. Maybe when they're older. Right now, they don't need to carry that image." By Monday morning, the calls started. A reporter from a local news station wanted an interview. A blogger wanted her story. 3 different lawyers called offering to take David to court for back child support. Sarah declined the interviews but took the number of one of the lawyers. Tuesday afternoon, while Sarah was at work, her phone rang from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Sarah." The voice was familiar and small. "David. What do you want?" I wanted to explain." "There's nothing to explain, David. You abandoned your family. You lied to everyone. The truth came out. That's the whole story. You humiliated me." Sarah's grip tightened on her phone. "No. You humiliated yourself. I just refused to let you keep hiding. I was going to file for divorce. I was going to handle everything. I just needed more time. You had 5 years. Silence stretched between them. How are Marcus and Emma? David asked quietly. They're fine. Because I made sure they were fine. No thanks to you. Can I talk to them? Sarah's voice was firm. When you can prove you're ready to be a father, actually show up, actually contribute, actually care, then maybe. But not before. Sarah. She ended the call. Over the next 2 weeks, the story spread through their small community. Some people looked at Sarah with newfound respect. Others whispered that she'd been too harsh, too public. Sarah ignored both groups. She focused on her job, her kids, and moving forward. One afternoon, Emma came home from school quieter than usual. She sat at the kitchen table, picking at her snack. Mom. Kids at school were talking about a video. Sarah's heart sank. What video? About you and Dad. They said you crashed his wedding. Sarah sat down next to her daughter. Emma, what do you want to know? Did you really do that? Yes. Why? Sarah chose her words carefully. Because sometimes people need to face the consequences of their choices. Your dad left us. He pretended we didn't exist. When he invited me to watch him start a new life, I decided to remind him, and everyone there, that actions have consequences. Emma was quiet for a moment. Were you scared? A little. But mostly I was tired of being invisible. I'm glad you went, Emma said softly. Sarah pulled her daughter into a hug. Thank you, sweetheart. Marcus had a different reaction. He found the video himself and watched it 3 times before confronting Sarah. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice cracking between boy and man. Because I didn't want you to carry that. I'm not a kid anymore, Mom. I could have handled it. Sarah looked at her son, nearly as tall as she was now, with eyes that had seen too much for 15. You're right. I'm sorry. I should have trusted you with the truth. Marcus nodded. Did he really never file for divorce? No. So all this time, he just pretended we didn't exist? Yes. Marcus sat down, processing. Good. I'm glad you called him out. You are. Yeah. He deserved it. Marcus looked at his mother with something like pride. You deserved better than what he did. We all did. That evening, the 3 of them sat together watching a movie. Sarah in the middle, her kids on either side. Halfway through, Emma leaned against her shoulder, and Marcus reached over to steal popcorn from the bowl in Sarah's lap. It was a simple moment. An ordinary Tuesday night. But for Sarah, it felt like victory. 3 months after the wedding that never happened, Sarah's life had found a new rhythm. Not perfect, but steadier. The lawyer she'd consulted was helping her file for divorce and pursue back child support. David wasn't fighting it. According to the lawyer, he'd moved into a small apartment across town and was working at a clinic in a different part of Tampa, keeping a low profile. The viral video eventually faded from the internet's attention span, replaced by newer scandals and fresher drama. But in Sarah's community, her story lingered. Some people still brought it up at grocery stores and school events. One Saturday morning, Sarah was at Marcus's soccer game when an older woman approached her from the bleachers. You're Sarah Chen, aren't you? Sarah tensed, preparing for judgment. Yes. The woman smiled warmly. I wanted to thank you. Thank me. My husband left me 18 years ago. Just disappeared one day, started a new family across the state. I never confronted him. I never said what I needed to say. I've carried that silence like a weight ever since. The woman's eyes glistened. Watching what you did, it gave me permission to be angry, to acknowledge that what he did wasn't okay. You did something I never had the courage to do. Sarah felt her throat tighten. I didn't feel very courageous. But you were. And you taught your children something important, that you don't have to accept being treated badly, even by people you love. After the woman walked away, Sarah sat back down on the bleachers. Maya, who'd been sitting beside her the whole time, squeezed her hand. See? You're changing lives. I was just trying to survive mine. Same thing sometimes. On the field, Marcus scored a goal. Sarah jumped up, cheering louder than anyone else in the stands. Marcus looked over, grinning, and Sarah felt her heart swell. That evening, Emma had an art show at school. Sarah walked through the hallway, looking at her daughter's paintings hung alongside her classmates' work. One painting stopped her cold. It was titled, My Hero, in Emma's careful handwriting. The painting showed a woman standing tall, surrounded by storm clouds, but with sunlight breaking through behind her. The woman's face was simple but unmistakable. It was Sarah. Do you like it? Emma asked, appearing beside her mother. Sarah couldn't speak for a moment. Emma, this is beautiful. It's you. After the wedding. Maya told me you were really brave. Sarah knelt down to her daughter's level. You think I'm brave? Yeah. You stood up to Dad. You made sure he couldn't pretend anymore. Emma's voice was matter of fact. That's brave. Sarah hugged her daughter tight, tears pricking her eyes. A week later, an envelope arrived in the mail. Sarah recognized David's handwriting immediately. She almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Inside was a letter, short and handwritten. Sarah, I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness. I know I hurt you and the kids in ways I can't repair. You were right about everything you said at the wedding. I was a coward. I ran from responsibility and built my life on lies. I'm not writing this to make excuses or to ask you to respond. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm sorry. I've started therapy. I'm working on becoming someone better, though I know that doesn't change the past. If Marcus and Emma ever want to talk to me, I'll be here. If they don't, I understand. Thank you for giving them the life I should have helped provide. David. Sarah read it twice, then folded it and put it in a drawer. She didn't need his apology to move on. She'd already done that. But acknowledgement mattered. The truth mattered. She texted the lawyer, proceed with everything. That night, Sarah made dinner for the kids, spaghetti and meatballs, their favorite. They ate together at the kitchen table, talking about their days. Marcus complained about a math test. Emma showed off a sketch of their neighbor's cat. It was ordinary. It was perfect. After dinner, as Sarah washed dishes, Marcus came into the kitchen. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think you'll ever forgive Dad? Sarah dried her hands on a towel and turned to face her son. I don't know. Forgiveness is complicated. But I do know that I won't let what he did define the rest of my life. I won't carry his choices like they're mine. Marcus nodded slowly. That makes sense. Do you want to see him? Sarah asked gently. If you do, I'll support that. Marcus thought about it. Maybe someday. But not yet. Right now, I'm okay with just us. Me too, Sarah said. 6 months after the wedding incident, Sarah got a promotion at the medical office where she worked. It came with a raise, not life-changing, but enough to breathe a little easier. Enough to stop calculating every dollar. She took the kids out to celebrate at their favorite pizza place. They sat in a booth by the window, the evening sun streaming in, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt something close to joy. So, Emma said, spinning cheese around her fork, what are we celebrating exactly? Mom got a promotion, Marcus explained. Which means she's a boss now. I'm not quite a boss, Sarah laughed. But it's a step up. Does that mean we can get the good cereal? Emma asked hopefully. Maybe sometimes. That's good enough for me. As they ate and laughed, Sarah looked at her children and felt overwhelming gratitude. Not for the hardship they'd endured, but for how they'd grown through it. Marcus was responsible beyond his years, already talking about colleges and scholarships. Emma was creative and empathetic, her art reflecting a depth of feeling Sarah hadn't had at 12. They were good kids. Strong kids. And she'd helped make them that way. A year after the wedding, Sarah ran into Jessica Martinez at a coffee shop in downtown Tampa. It was awkward at first, two women connected by the same man's betrayal. Jessica approached her table. "Sarah, can I talk to you for a minute?" Sarah gestured to the empty chair. "Sure." Jessica sat down, clutching her coffee cup. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For telling the truth. It hurt like hell in the moment, but you saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life." Jessica's voice was steady. "After the wedding, I found out David had been lying about a lot more than just you. Money, his past, everything. If we'd gotten married, I would have been trapped." "I'm sorry you had to go through that," Sarah said sincerely. "Don't be. You did me a favor." Jessica paused. "How are you doing?" "I'm good. Really good, actually." "I'm glad." Jessica stood up. "Take care of yourself, Sarah." "You too." As Jessica left, Sarah felt something shift inside her. Closure, maybe. Or just the final piece of a chapter clicking into place. That evening, Sarah sat on her back porch with a glass of iced tea, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Dinner this weekend?" "My treat." Sarah smiled and typed back, "Sounds perfect." She thought about the woman she'd been 5 years ago, overwhelmed, abandoned, drowning in bills and grief. And she thought about the woman she was now, stronger, steadier, no longer defined by someone else's choices. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been nights she'd cried into her pillow, mornings she'd wondered how she'd make it through the day. But she had made it. Not just survived, but built something real. Marcus came outside, basketball in hand. "Want to play?" "Sure," Sarah said, setting down her tea. They played in the driveway until the streetlights came on, Emma joining them halfway through, keeping score on a notepad with exaggerated commentary. Later, after the kids were in bed, Sarah sat at the kitchen table with her journal, a habit she'd started a year ago on her therapist's recommendation. She wrote, "Today Marcus asked if I'd ever forgive David. I told him I won't let David's choices define my life. But here's what I didn't say. I've already forgiven myself. For not seeing the signs sooner. For thinking I wasn't enough. For all the nights I blamed myself for his leaving. The truth is, his leaving had nothing to do with my worth and everything to do with his character. I spent 5 years proving I could survive without him. Now I'm spending the rest of my life proving I can thrive. The kids are happy. I'm happy. We're building something real, something honest, something that can't be taken away by someone else's lies. That's not just survival. That's victory." Sarah closed the journal and looked around her kitchen, the chipped countertop she kept meaning to replace, the crayon drawings held to the fridge with magnets, the stack of bills organized in a folder instead of scattered in panic. This was her life. Imperfect, hard one, and entirely hers. She turned off the lights and headed to bed, knowing that tomorrow would bring its own challenges. But she'd face them the same way she'd faced everything else in the past 5 years. One step at a time, with her head held high. Because betrayal doesn't just test the person who's been hurt. It reveals their strength. And Sarah had discovered she was stronger than she'd ever known. David had lost everything when he built his future on lies. Sarah had gained everything when she chose to face the truth and refused to be silent. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't what you do to someone else. It's who you become despite what they did to you. And Sarah had become exactly who she needed to be. A mother, a survivor, and a woman who knew her own worth. The end. Thank you so much for reading this complete story. If this journey moved you, inspired you, or made you think, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below telling us, what lesson did you take away from Sarah's story? And let us know where you're watching from. We love connecting with our global community. Through stories like these, we shed light on the struggles of families, the strength of single parents, and the power of truth. Your support through subscriptions, likes, and shares helps us continue bringing meaningful stories to life. Remember, you are stronger than your circumstances. Your worth is not determined by someone else's inability to see it. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is simply keep going. Until next time, stay strong, stay blessed, and know that your story matters. Subscribe, like, comment, share.